the sightings that have happened in the last few years were not understood, and that there was, in fact, a mystery, about the objects that had been recorded. Of course, everybody knows about the Nimitz, the aircraft carrier, but there are a number of other videos, and so this time there is evidence, and evidence at the highest level. But this is pretty special because yesterday the director of the Central Intelligence Agency said, who is also the director of Central Intelligence, for all the agencies, all the intelligence agencies, said that the sightings that have happened in the last few years were not understood, and that there was, in fact, a mystery, about the objects that had been recorded. Of course, everybody knows about the Nimitz, the aircraft carrier, but there are a number of other videos, and so this time there is evidence, and evidence at the highest level. So it's a very exciting time. It's a turning point in the research.
Excellent, excellent. And you've seen a lot of things change over the time period you've been studying all of this.
Well, and I see that in colleagues in science and in finance who had always been skeptical, yeah, Jacques, maybe there's something there, but, we don't know. But now they want to meet, and they want to talk, and they want to hear about the details and hear about the research. So that's what we're going to go into at this conference.
I have so much respect for my father because he became the leading expert in the world on one of the most important questions ever to face mankind. That's a pretty strong legacy. So I both want to honor and respect that legacy and do what I can to maybe push it forward just a little bit more. This is one of the most important questions to face mankind, and I was fortunate enough to grow up with UFOs. I don't know life without UFOs. And from a larger sense, just the inquisitiveness and the curiosity and the acceptance of things on the kind of fringy edges of science. My father liked the idea of taking a flashlight to the sort of borders of science and then dragging mainstream science along just a little bit further. And I think he did that. And now the society is very different. We have very different public stances on the part of the US government in terms of information that they're disclosing with a lowercase d. And I think my father would find that fascinating. And I feel now drawn to getting more and more active in the field and doing what I can from a slightly different point of view to help push things forward a little bit more, to get more information out, to get people to accept the phenomena, and to delve deeply into potential interdimensional sources of some of the activity.
I think it's tangible now, where I think that this disclosure UFO thing is something that we can almost touch and see and feel, where before it was always on the horizon, it was always next year, and it was always spoken about with hypotheticals, where now the tone is different. There's a tangible thing. I think for the first time in my life, I've been doing this for 50 years, I think this year is the year. I think 2022 is the year. I've said that now 40 times, right? This is the year, man. 1999, man. This 2000. It's, But I think that the responsibility has been pushed so far into Washington's direction that they are now forced into responding. The community can't relax right now. It's exciting, but let's keep our foot on the gas. Let's keep the pressure on. The government's not going to reveal anything to us. It's our responsibility to keep the pressure on them and force them to tell us what they know. They're not going to volunteer secrets. They're not going to do that. They never will. But it's up to us, and we have the opportunity, like never before, to force their hand. And I think we're right there. Is that going to happen in 2022? The opportunity's never been like this before. And I think that this might be the year.
His importance to this community for the last 40 and 50 years, it simply cannot be measured. We all know this. And I'm not sure if he is aware that when he speaks and his words, just like we just saw on the screen, we listen to them. When he speaks, we take note. We know that Jacques knows things, and he is willing to share with us that knowledge.
It's not just my point of view, it's a point of view of science over the, since the Greeks, of dividing the physical data, from the spirit, the soul, the intellect, and all of that, which was another thing, which is reflected in, you can, when you're a student, you can go into psychology and so on, or you can go into the hard sciences and learn chemistry and physics. I've never been comfortable with that, because we are both physical and psychic. I mean, we dream, we have, we see things, we imagine things, we can project images in our minds, but at the same time, if a brick falls on my head, I'm going to feel it, okay? It's a physical brick, okay? So why do we want to divide knowledge into two different things? Now, the UFO phenomenon reminds us of that, because very often what we have is a report by someone. That we have the pictures and the thermal signatures of objects over, an aircraft carrier, over the things taken from aircraft and seen visually by pilots. So we cannot divide those two things. I mean, they are part of the same phenomenon. We have to study the whole thing, which makes it difficult, because when you go to a university, there is a building for psychology and there is a building for physics, and usually they don't meet. So for a long time, people who studied the phenomenon, including the military, of course, treated it as a physical object. They still do. In the latest study, there was, what do we know about mass, luminosity, density, acceleration, all those things that an aircraft would have, okay? Assuming that these were essentially flying machines, that had a performance over way beyond what we can do with our aircraft today, okay? All the other observations that were sort of marginal and were more, psychological again, were usually pushed aside as, a reaction from a witness who didn't expect to see something, so they imagined certain things. Well, it turns out that that aspect of it is just as consistent as the rest of it. For example, too many witnesses tell us, I was in the yard and I saw a little light, and the little light expanded, the little light turned into a craft, the craft landed, and it made some holes in the yard, and I can show you the holes, okay? In some cases, we can recover materials, metals or other materials from that site. So where did it come from? Because this is not just like an airplane that came out of somewhere, and flew over and landed. This is something that appeared out of nowhere. Well, it's maybe shocking or difficult to understand. You doubt, the person. At the same time, physicists these days are very, very interested in things like that because we are, not because of UFOs, but because of particle physics, because of other things in physics. A number of theories are being built with a number of dimensions greater than 3 dimensions of space plus time. Okay, there are a number of things when you look at the universe that indicate that there must be more than 4 dimensions. In fact, we may have to go beyond dimensions and look at quantum phenomena, the quantum form that would, when we observe it, give us the appearance of having dimensions. So there are some articles today in the mainstream of physics talking about that. We also have wormholes that would go between 2 different universes. Dr. Hynek, was a consultant to the Air Force for many years, used to teach at Northwestern that there may be another universe 5 minutes ahead of us. So if we see a craft, it doesn't mean it comes from another planet in our galaxy. It could be a craft that comes through time or through other dimensions into our surrounding environment right now. So we cannot brush off the reports from people who say it appeared out of nowhere. I saw a little light and the little light became a craft. That we have to accept that. In fact, I have cataloged a number of cases like that, including some in France, where the 2 witnesses were surgeons, 2 surgeons. The father and the son were surgeons. They were looking out the window of their house, which was, a large house overlooking a garden, and that's what they saw was a little spark of light. And the little spark of light turned into a craft over 35 feet in diameter, and I have the imprints of the legs in the ground. Okay, someone came in with plaster of Paris and took an imprint. It's perfectly spherical. It's about this big. Okay, there were 3 legs to that object that came out of that little spark that was moving around the trees. Okay, so this is what we need to explain. Okay, I've spoken to the witnesses. I've gone to the site. There is no question it happened. There is no question these are trustworthy witnesses. I have no explanation for how you do that. This is not just some advanced plane, okay, some advanced aircraft.
Watch more podcast clips now on our YouTube channel. Go to Livewire Podcast Clips and watch more great podcast videos just like this one.